Fox News just went dark on air while trying to defend Donald Trump's policies, but was strongly countered by Representative Greg Casar. These policies are destroying America.
If these puppet politicians want to represent billionaires instead of the people, then they should lose their jobs in the people's house.
Imagine this scene. Social Security offices in rural areas are closed, and the elderly, the disabled, the most vulnerable in society are forced to go to these closed offices to verify their information. If they can't make it, Donald Trump will label them as frauds and cut off all their benefits. It's hard to imagine a more cruel campaign when those who need help the most are abandoned by the government. This policy is a direct assault on the poor and the vulnerable, those who cannot defend themselves.
Elon Musk calling Social Security a Ponzi scheme, saying that they'll eliminate billions of dollars from Social Security.
While cutting Medicaid, Medicare, and Social Security, Donald Trump continues to funnel billions of dollars into Elon Musk's pockets through federal contracts. Remember, Musk is making $8 million per day from your tax money, money that you paid into the government budget.
No, Elon Musk makes $8 million a day from the federal government. Why are they looking at cutting Medicaid, which serves single moms, people with disabilities, or Social Security, instead of looking at the billions of dollars from the corporate class? It's because those corporations...
Musk isn't just getting money from contracts, but he's also negotiating even larger deals from the FAA, the State Department, and even Starlink. And all of this is happening right after Musk helped fund Trump's re-election campaign. This isn't about politics. This is oligarchic corruption. Now, your tax dollars aren't just helping the poor. They're being used to help Musk and other billionaires buy more private jets and increase their wealth. In addition to his policies towards the poor, Donald Trump also implemented inhumane policies towards immigrants. Hundreds of immigrants, including women, LGBT individuals, and legally seeking asylum, were kidnapped by Trump and taken to detention camps in El Salvador, a place that is inadequate to house them. Former Attorney General Pam Bondi called them not immigrants, but garbage.
Safe. This is President Trump's agenda to keep Americans safe, Maria. It's basic public safety. Get these people out of our country as fast as we can. They're not immigrants. They're illegal aliens who are committing the most violent crimes you can imagine on Americans. Murder, rapes. Ask the parents of all of these young women who have been violently strangled, raped, and murdered. And we are going to continue to make America safe again, because that's President Trump's agenda.
This statement not only reflects racism, but also shows a heartless cruelty towards people who are in desperate need of help. This policy goes against all the humanitarian values and human rights that this country has long prided itself on. And now, after all of this, Representative Greg Casar has strongly spoken out against these policies, and he didn't hesitate to expose the truth right on Fox News. He said,
Of course, violence is dangerous and wrong, and those who commit it should be held accountable. And there are millions of Americans right now speaking out against their health care being taken away, speaking out against money being taken away from their taxpayer pockets and being handed out in federal contracts.
Casar is one of the rare voices speaking out against the manipulation of the billionaires and conservative politicians. He calls for the protection of programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security while putting an end to the privileges for billionaires like Elon Musk. We need to return power to the workers, the people who are being disrespected, while the billionaires continue to enjoy privileges. Donald Trump's policies and their impacts are not just affecting a certain group of people, they are creating deep changes in society. Protecting welfare programs and maintaining fairness in the distribution of public resources is a crucial issue that we all need to care about. In the current political landscape, finding a fair and sustainable solution to balance the interests of the various social classes is still a major challenge. Stay tuned, because we need to discuss how to improve these policies and ensure that no one is left behind. U.S.-Canada-Mexico trade tensions. Could the U.S. automotive industry collapse? Car prices in the U.S. could soon skyrocket by $1,000 to $3,000, not due to a global crisis or supply shortage, but because of a new import tariff policy threatened by the Trump administration. Is this truly a strategy to protect American industry, or a risky move that could trigger economic instability? And as Canada and Mexico prepare to retaliate, Who will suffer the most? Businesses, workers, or American consumers? Let's dive into the real impact of the America First policy and why it could become the greatest threat to the U.S. automotive industry. Why impose auto tariffs now? The first question is, why is the Trump administration pushing these tariffs at this moment? The answer lies in the familiar strategy: America First. More than just a slogan, it forms the foundation of a series of protectionist trade policies aimed at boosting domestic manufacturing investments, reducing reliance on foreign goods, increasing job opportunities for American workers. The focus: protect and strengthen key domestic industries, particularly steel and aluminum, essential materials for car manufacturing. From Trump's perspective, raising import tariffs would encourage companies to invest and produce within the U.S., cut dependency on international suppliers, generate more employment for American workers. However, while the goal is to boost local production, the reality is that the U.S. automotive industry heavily relies on international supply chains, particularly from Canada, Mexico, and Asian countries. Disrupting this supply network not only raises production costs, but also threatens the ability of American car manufacturers to maintain output and stay globally competitive. Does building tariff walls truly protect the economy, or will it just burden American businesses and consumers with higher costs? The critical role of Canada and Mexico in the U.S. supply chain. Did you know that millions of cars manufactured in the U.S. rely on parts produced in Canada and Mexico? Specifically, these neighboring countries supply essential components like engines and transmissions from factories in Mexico, raw steel and aluminum from industrial centers in Canada, electronic parts and microchips from Asia, particularly South Korea and China. Once completed, these parts are shipped to U.S. manufacturing hubs in Detroit, Ohio, and Kentucky for final assembly. This cross-border cooperation has enabled the U.S. auto industry to maintain competitive production costs and thrive globally. But what happens when this system is disrupted by new tariffs? If these supply chains break down, production costs will rise sharply. Thousands of businesses, from major corporations to small suppliers, will bear the financial burden. Moreover, imposing tariffs could prompt Canada and Mexico to retaliate with their own measures, potentially igniting a prolonged and fierce trade war. Is domestic production a real solution? Can the U.S. really manufacture everything domestically to avoid relying on imports? While it sounds like a viable solution, in reality, shifting all production back to the U.S. is nearly impossible in the short term. Why? High production costs. Labor costs in the U.S. are significantly higher than in neighboring countries like Mexico and Canada. Strict environmental and labor regulations further drive up operating expenses. Shortage of raw materials and infrastructure. The U.S. does not produce enough steel, aluminum, or rare minerals necessary for electric vehicle production. Rebuilding the domestic manufacturing infrastructure could take 5 to 10 years and require billions of dollars. Inflationary effects. Higher domestic production costs would lead to uncompetitive product prices. This could trigger inflation, resulting in widespread economic consequences. If the U.S. truly disrupts its international supply chains, the consequences won't just affect businesses. Consumers will also bear the cost.
Elon Musk was abruptly cut off by Fox News, right in the middle of his speech at CPAC. Once a national icon with a +24 approval rating in 2017, Musk has now plummeted to -19 in 2025. And this is just the beginning of a ripple effect now reshaping his public image, faster than anyone expected.
Chainsaw for bureaucracy! Chainsaw!
At the 2025 CPAC conference, Elon Musk took the stage, holding a chainsaw. Yes, a real one. He used it to symbolize cutting down the bloated federal government. He criticized federal workers earning $50,000 a year, accusing them of being ineffective, underpaid, and still unable to afford health insurance or housing.
Sitting on stage at CPAC with a chainsaw, making fun of firing federal workers who make $50,000 a year.
Musk then claimed he's received death threats because he's trying to do what's right for American taxpayers. But just over 6 minutes into his speech, Fox News suddenly cut the live feed while Elon was still speaking. A shocking move, coming from a network that has traditionally supported both Musk and conservative politics. Days later, Musk returned in a cabinet meeting with Donald Trump, this time as a policy advisor. He announced what he called a success, uncovering financial fraud in the Small Business Administration. His claim? We discovered $330 million in loans issued to children under 11 years old. One of them was a 9-month-old baby who received $100,000. No evidence was presented, but the narrative helped reinforce Musk's image as a government wastebuster. According to a CNN poll, Musk's approval rating has collapsed from plus 24 in 2017 to minus 19 in early 2025. Among Democrats, from plus 35 to minus 91, a drop of over 120 points. Independents flipped from plus 17 to minus 17. Only Republicans showed growth, from plus 18 to plus 51. But that wasn't enough to rescue his national image.
Change of perception as dramatic as this one. I mean, Elon Musk's net favorable.
And the damage wasn't just political. Tesla's U.S. sales dropped significantly. In 2024, registrations fell 5%. By the first quarter of 2025, another 11% decline. Meanwhile, Hyundai, Rivian, and Ford posted strong growth. The key problem? Only 20% of EV buyers in America are Republicans. By aligning himself with partisan politics, Elon is losing the broader market that once admired him as a non-political tech visionary. Then came a new controversy. Musk posted on X, $50 million worth of condoms were sent to Hamas. The claim was quickly debunked. The shipment actually went to Mozambique as part of an HIV prevention initiative. When questioned, Musk responded,
Well, first of all, some of the things that I say will be incorrect and should be corrected. So nobody's going to bat 1,000.
In the same cabinet meeting, Musk proposed a controversial budget cap for the National Institutes of Health. He wanted to limit indirect costs to 15%, saying NIH's overhead was too high. But NIH responded with data. Every $1 in funding creates $2.46 in economic benefit. The NIH contributes $93 billion a year to the U.S. economy.
Katie Britt, the senator from Alabama, had to go out there and say, no, don't take our NIH dollars.
Even Senator Katie Britt, once an ally of Musk, spoke out. Don't gut the NIH's budget. If we trade it away, we're sacrificing the future of medical research in America. So what's really happening with Elon Musk? This isn't just a personal downfall. It's a full-blown stress test for how far technology leaders can push into public policy, and where we, as a society, draw the line between entrepreneurial ambition and political power. Because what's happening to Elon Musk might just be a preview of what's coming next.
Lately, Donald Trump has looked exhausted. The U.S. economy is on the brink. GDP could drop between negative 2.8% and negative 3% in the first quarter. The stock market is plummeting, and top CEOs are losing confidence. Yet, instead of tackling these crises, Trump is spending his time on social media, ranting about completely unrelated issues. Something is definitely not right. Conservative media is turning on Trump. For years, Trump had the full support of conservative media. But now, even the Wall Street Journal, a longtime ally, is calling his trade war the most foolish in history, and they're not alone. Chief Executive Magazine reports that CEO confidence in America is at its lowest since 2012. A survey of 220 top executives shows growing fear about economic instability, many calling Trump's tariff policies a disaster.
You know what? You want to know something? You want to know something? We always win. We always win.
But the reality? Trump's top economic advisors are being bombarded with calls from major business leaders begging for action before a full-blown recession takes hold. And trust me, what's coming next will shock you. Trump is glued to social media, not fixing the economy. With the economy in freefall, what's Trump doing? Spending hours on Truth Social, posting about Elon Musk? Instead of rolling out a plan to stabilize the economy, Trump is fixated on praising billionaires and picking fights online. Meanwhile, a recent poll from Michigan, a critical battleground state, shows 70% of voters disapprove of his leadership. A former White House advisor confirmed, "We thought he'd focus on inflation, taxes, and job growth. Instead, he's on social media all day." Trump's priorities? Completely out of sync with what Americans actually need. Social Security at risk. While everyday Americans struggle with rising costs, Trump is considering cutting Social Security call centers, a move that would make it harder for seniors to access their benefits. We have to look at cutting some of these bloated programs. A report from the Social Security Administration warns that privatizing Social Security could lead to skyrocketing healthcare costs, while reducing the effectiveness of these programs. So, who benefits? You guessed it. Big corporations. If Trump hands control of Social Security to Wall Street, it's game over for millions of seniors. Trump declares war on paper straws. As the U.S. economy spirals, Trump is laser-focused on plastic straws. The Justice Department is now backing his push to ban paper straws, claiming they're expensive, ineffective, and bad for consumers.
We're going back to plastic straws. I think it's okay.
Critics say this is just a distraction tactic, keeping people fixated on nonsense instead of the real issues: skyrocketing inflation, job losses, and failing economic policies. Is this really the best use of a president's time? The Guantanamo immigration nightmare. In a shocking move, Trump ordered that undocumented immigrants with no criminal record be sent to Guantanamo Bay. His reasoning? Protect national security. We're keeping the worst criminals away from our cities. But here's the catch. A Fox News report revealed that none of the 290 detainees were criminals, and just weeks later, they were quietly released back into the U.S. A total PR disaster. Experts call this another case of Trump playing politics on immigration, while offering zero real solutions. Trump's allies defend economic collapse. Even as the U.S. economy crumbles, some of Trump's closest allies are still standing by his policies. No pain, no gain. Tariffs make America strong. But data from the Federal Reserve tells a different story. The U.S. economy is facing a -3% GDP decline, the worst in years. Yet, Trump's officials continue to insist, we are having the best economy ever. Believe me, the truth. Since Trump took office, the stock market has fallen harder than other major economies, showing that his trade policies are hurting, not helping. And the worst part? This is just the beginning. Stay tuned. The next developments will leave you stunned. Trump has just doubled the tariffs on aluminum and steel from Canada, and the price to pay could be a global recession. So, how will this decision impact the U.S. and Canadian economies?
Breaking news, President Trump saying he is now doubling the tariffs on Canadian aluminum and steel.
The latest announcement from President Trump has shocked the entire U.S. financial market. The move to double the tariffs from 25% to 50% on Canadian aluminum and steel is a strong action. This comes right after the Ontario government imposed a 25% tariff on electricity exports to the U.S. This escalation not only affects the steel industry, but also strikes a direct blow to the global supply chain, just 48 hours after Trump's announcement.
In a row, the Dow Jones down now. Take a look at this. You see the Dow is way down, getting close to 600 points now, 622 points down right now, 622.
The stock market continues to slide, and financial experts from Goldman Sachs have raised the forecast for a U.S. recession to 20%, 5% higher than before. While Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell insists that the economy remains stable, it's clear the stock market doesn't believe that. Trump isn't just targeting aluminum and steel. He's also threatening to impose tariffs on imported cars from Canada on April 2nd. This could send Canada's auto industry into crisis. GM, Ford, and Stellantis all have factories in Canada, and if these tariffs are enforced, the auto supply chain will be disrupted, directly affecting products sold in the U.S. Canada isn't backing down from threats. Premier Doug Ford made a strong statement, condemning Trump's actions as an unjustified attack on Canada's economy and citizens.
Saying that it will be an absolute disaster for both countries, and people will be unemployed, plants will shut down, assembly lines will shut down, and inflation is going to happen within days. So this is unfortunate. One person's responsible, and that's President Trump.
Canada has spoken up, ready to retaliate with specific measures. They're not just talking about responding, but have already prepared powerful economic levers to minimize the impact on themselves. In reality, Canada already has some defensive measures in place. Canada's Ministry of Trade has announced a series of steps, which could include imposing tariffs on goods imported from the U.S. to balance out the unfairness in trade. This could cause major disruptions in U.S. industries like food, automotive, and especially the U.S. agriculture sector. This escalation won't just cause damage to one side. The Canadian government has estimated that they could lose around $16 billion from Trump's tariff decisions in the past year. If this trade war continues, these losses will only rise. What's concerning is that not just Canada, but even U.S. investors and companies are feeling the massive impact from the escalating trade war. For example, with the decision to impose tariffs on aluminum and steel, many U.S. companies face higher costs, increased production expenses, and eventually the prices of goods in the U.S. will rise. This not only reduces consumer purchasing power, but also makes it harder for many industries to maintain profits. Sectors like automotive, electronics, and even construction could be heavily impacted. With the events unfolding, this war isn't just between the U.S. and Canada. Trump's decisions have raised concerns not only within countries, but also major economies like the European Union and China are closely watching. If the U.S. doesn't soon stop its tariff hikes, the risk is that other countries will retaliate as well. And this could lead to a global trade war. It's certain that if these decisions aren't adjusted, we'll see long-lasting effects not just on the U.S. and Canada, but also on the global economy. But it's in these difficult times that there's also an opportunity for nations to cooperate and find alternative solutions, benefiting everyone. Stay tuned for the next exciting developments.